Joining me now is a woman who makes such a remarkable difference, her and her organisation, in the lives of women and men all over Australia. The Teddy Love Club started in South Australia. It was in fact born from two mothers' heartache of leaving the hospital with empty arms, and they decided that they wanted to give mothers and fathers a little something if they had to leave hospital with empty arms themselves. The Teddy Love Club was founded in South Australia in 2002. It has grown and by 2004 had expanded into every state of Australia. Joining me now is Jaylee Cooper, who is the Managing Director of the Teddy Love Club. Good afternoon, Jaylee.
Good afternoon.
Great to have you on the show to talk about this subject, and it's a subject that is very close to the hearts and minds of many people listening. I'm sure that each and every one of us has at some point had someone in our life that has been affected by a miscarriage or a stillbirth. How was your experience with this organisation? How did you get involved?
Sure. I lost my son in March of 2005. He was stillborn, 5.5 months into my pregnancy. So I went into the Women's and Children's Hospital and delivered him, and after he was born, I was given a TLC teddy bear. So at the time, I thought, oh, a teddy bear, wow, this is lovely. It was actually the first thing that anyone had ever given me for him. And on the little teddy bear was a tag, which the bear had been donated from the TLC program, and it had been donated in memory of another baby that had passed away, and her name was Gemma. So at that immediate point of feeling incredibly alone and feeling like I was the only person that this had ever happened to, I was 23 at the time, so I didn't have any friends that were remotely even thinking about having babies, let alone losing them. So I didn't really even know that this had happened. So to get that there and to see that it did happen to other people, as sad as that made me feel, it instantly made me feel that I wasn't alone and there was somebody out there that had experienced it. So that was my initial connection with the program, was receiving the bear.
It would just be such a horrible time. I mean, to have the expectation, and those of us that have been pregnant know that you have this expectation the whole way through. You hope and hope and hope and hope that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And to have that not be okay at 5.5 months, and to have to go through the trauma of delivering a child at that time, I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, I don't think anything could prepare, nothing can really prepare you for it. The pregnancy had been difficult for a couple of months, so we had known that there was, possibly things wrong with him, and perhaps having to prepare ourselves that, we may have a disabled child, we may, how were our lives going to change with that. But then, I guess finding out that heartbreaking news that his condition was so severe that he was never going to survive, it's not anything that I can, it's very hard to put into words as to how difficult it was. It was shattering, that's probably the only word that I can say, is that it was just so shattering to us at the time, because from the moment that you're pregnant, yourself, you plan things, and you have,
and everyone's so excited for you, and everyone's like, oh, what can I get you, and can I help you, can I buy you some things, and how about we go and buy some Bonds groceries?
Particularly I think when it's your first baby as well, there's so many hopes and expectations, and to lose all those hopes and expectations and those dreams, it was completely shattering.
My brother had a stillbirth at full term, and I remember him telling me how he and his wife had lay-byed, because it was their first child, had lay-byed the cot and had lay-byed the pram, and they had all these things on lay-by at the baby shop, and he, after the birth, he actually had to go into the shop and say, I'm sorry, but could I have my money back, please? I'm not, I don't need these things anymore. And the shop assistant was like, well, I'm terribly sorry. These are our lay-by terms, and you've just got to pay for them. And he said, I don't have a baby. My baby died. And when he told me that, I was just sobbing for days, because I just thought, God, that's just something that you don't, you don't consider what that must be like. For many parents, they set up a nursery before. Right. Some people I know have set up a nursery when the pregnancy's, 12 weeks in, and you just think, oh, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they're the types of things that people forget about, I guess, and realise that, those things like having to make the phone calls and saying that the baby's died. And that particularly happened for the dads, because the mum often just can't. So the dad does usually take on that role as such, to be the one that has to, put the word out there to the family and friends and let them know what's happening. Things like organising your baby's funeral. I mean, that was for me something I'm ordinarily a very organised person, and I remember walking through those doors and there was no words that came out of my mouth. I just couldn't do it, and I looked at my husband, who for the previous few days had been the one who had taken on that role, which, ordinarily he wasn't that sort of person to do it, but he did, and he had no words. And I was just lucky that my mum was there, and she, could say to the lady, look, we need to organise, Kai's funeral. And it is those types of things that I think people don't realise, that it's not only the loss of your baby, so going through the delivery and losing your baby, but it's also the time that follows and having to do those things and finding out that there's probably not a normal life for you anymore, that it is a new normal as such, and just finding that is really difficult.
Because you've had a child. I mean, and that's the thing. It's not you've had a miscarriage and that child isn't an identifiable. That is a child that you have given birth to.
Yeah.
And they are a part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you go? I mean, did you find that friends were awkward too around you? Because it is a difficult thing. How do you, how as a friend do you deal with that sort of stuff?
I did find my friends to be very supportive, but it was just something that I guess that I felt that I didn't really connect to. I really needed to speak to someone that had been there, that had experienced it. So I was really wanting to reach out to other bereaved families to find out, how the hell do you get through this? How do I get through one day, through a couple of days? How do I go when I'm going back to work, or when it's my first Christmas or my first Mother's Day? We had Mother's Day just a couple of months after Kai was born. So to be able to get through all of those things, I wasn't able to really talk to friends about it because they didn't know, because they weren't, it's not something that they'd experienced.
Yeah.
That's right. So.
And so that teddy bear, that first teddy bear, that obviously for you opened up a whole world, which is the Teddy Love Club, which is effectively a support group made up of people just like yourself who have experienced that trauma.
Yeah, that's right. So I had contacted the program and decided to go along to one of the support meetings, and it's an incredibly daunting thing to go into a support meeting if you don't sort of know what it's going to be like, especially if you've got lots of preconceptions of what you think support meetings might be like. And it was actually a wonderful experience in a sense that straight away I just felt like I connected. I felt okay, and I felt like I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to explain, why I was there as such. They knew why, and I could talk if I wanted to, and if I didn't want to, that was okay. And, it was something for my husband to come along to as well, which was great.
And there were other dads there?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think often the dads get missed, so we as a program really try hard to ensure that the fathers and the family and friends also of the baby that's passed away to know that they can be supported as well, because the loss of the baby obviously affects the family, but it also affects grandparents and siblings and, aunts and uncles. So, those people need to be supported as well.
How many births, or how many parents, I suppose, need the services of the Teddy Love Club around Australia every year?
Since we've started, then we've given more than 20,000 births. So, when you think 20,000 beds, that's 20,000 families. So, probably in excess of that, but, in average, and probably, just in South Australia alone, we probably support more than 1,000 families a year.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. 6 babies are stillborn every day in Australia, which is a statistic that people, they just don't know, and it is something that with our Awareness Month of October, we are trying to get that out there and to let people know the reality of it.
6 a day?
Yeah, 6 a day. So over 2,000 a year. So an incredible amount.
Gee, that's an extraordinary figure, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they don't really know, do they, what it is? I mean, sometimes it's just one of those things. I know that with my brother, the pregnancy had been completely normal. Everything had been fine. She was about to give birth, and then she just felt nothing.
Yeah, the rate of stillbirth hasn't actually declined in more than 10 years. So there is more research that is needed, and our program particularly works with the Stillbirth Foundation, who they primarily look after the research side of things, and we look after the bereavement side of things. Because more money is needed, obviously, to try and find out, well, why does this happen? Is there any way that we can stop it happening?
And it's just I think for me, I was so lucky with my pregnancies, I'm touching wood. But I know that with every single one, maybe because of my brother's experience, I did not breathe properly until that child was in my arms, wrapped up, gone through the checks, was okay.
Yeah.
And even with my first, I hadn't even bought anything.
Yeah.
I went into hospital to have him, and I had nothing. I didn't have a nursery, I didn't have a pram, I didn't have baby clothes, I had nothing, because I thought, let's just wait and see.
Yeah.
Because, it happens.
That's right.
In alarming numbers.
You never expect it will happen to you. I certainly did not.
No, absolutely not. I'm talking to a fascinating young lady, Jaylee Cooper from the Teddy Love Club. If you've got any questions, if you'd like to share your own story, if you've had contact with the Teddy Love Club and you found them to be an extraordinary light in your life at a time when you really need some, give us a call, 8223 0000. We'll be